Okay, so just as everything else is coming out of dormancy, so are the wisterias. Now, I've got 4 wisterias, and 3 of them have bloomed, and 1 has not. The one that hasn't bloomed is going to be my most difficult one to deal with and to show, but that's not going to be the topic of today's video. Today's video is going to be focused on this wisteria. This is a cultivar called Betty Tam. Now, if I could go back, I probably wouldn't plant wisterias at all, or I would make much smarter choices in regards to which ones I've planted, because wisterias can be very invasive, and I told myself I had a plan for this, that I was going to make sure that the flowers get cut off. I don't have any seed production. Any seeds that are produced, I throw them in the fire. But I found that I don't really have the attention span for all of that. I've got so many different plants that it's better if I just don't grow things that need that kind of attention. But I do have this one still. I'm not at a point where I feel like, murdering it to get, rid of it and do something easier. So here it is. At some point in the future, I may not have it, but for now I do. So I'd like to talk about it today, talk about where I see blooms coming from, and prune it. Should have done this already. So let's take a closer look at this real quick. So as I said, this is a cultivar called Betty Tam. I've had this for at least 5 years now, but on this fence, it's been here for roughly 4 years, and we've got a bloom coming on. And I want to talk about, where the blooms come from so that you can plan a little bit better when you're pruning. And then some surprising things I've actually seen. So on this one, I've noticed 2 things as I'm looking at it today and paying, closer attention. For one, you see how many blooms are here? Ooh, maybe you don't. This doesn't seem to want to autofocus. There we go. You see how many blooms are here? There's a bloom, all of these blooms here. Some of them are coming directly out of the buds as the first thing that pops out. And then I've noticed also that you see it has the ability to put out buds at the end of these new little vines where the leaves are coming out. So that's pretty cool. I hadn't fully noticed that in years past, and maybe that's a characteristic of this particular type of wisteria, because this one is supposed to be able to bloom in the summer as well after this initial bloom. So that's a pretty cool feature. So the way that you're supposed to prune wisterias is you're not supposed to let them just create wild vines all over the place. And let me go back to the tripod to talk about that. It is a little windy, so I apologize if you can't hear me super well, but the way that you're supposed to prune wisterias is, let me make sure that y'all can see this here. In fact, just go ahead and switch to a zoomed in view, because I'd like to talk about this spot up here particularly. So the way that you're supposed to grow wisterias is you let a vine grow, and then you create these little spurs, these little offshoots here, and any long whip growth, like these long pieces that come out and wrap around things, you're supposed to prune those off during the growing season. You're not supposed to let them grow all the way into the next year and then prune them off in the spring. That's how you maintain the shape and maintain a nice, neat structure. Again, if this is like one of the few plants you're focusing on during a year, and you don't have as many thousands of plants as I do, you may be able to keep up with that better, but I have not traditionally been able to really keep up with that. And so looks like these little flowering spurs are kind of dead. This whole cane might be dead. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I've done little prunings and cut things and left them in place. But let me show you what I'm doing today. Let me make sure that things are still in frame here. So today I'm going to just be pruning off everything that I know I don't really need. So I'm going to prune some of this stuff way back, just get these all the way off. I'm going to mulch everything from here too. I really let these flowering spurs come really far out, and I should not have. I have a general rule with anything I grow, and that's that I really don't like to prune things off past a certain point. I like to prune them whenever they're like smaller than the diameter of my finger. But life happens. Now this wisteria has been a very reliable bloomer, so I've never really been too worried about this one not blooming. And again, you know, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to these. They're really beautiful when they are blooming, but it's like a week or 2 week period where they're blooming and they look really amazing, and then they're just a mass of green leaves for the rest of the year. And I like a good mass of green leaves, so I'm not particularly concerned about these not blooming all the time. But it is something to think about if you're considering a wisteria for the blooms, because it's a little more work than just getting to enjoy the blooms. You know, you're going to have some pruning and maintenance to do. And I would say, some people say you need like 2 prunings a summer. And down here in the southeast United States, I think it's quite a bit more than that. I think you're going to have to get out there at least once a month to do prunings, especially when I show y'all the one that's on the garage, that wisteria. You'll see I could have done much more with that one. Ooh, see, and this is the kind of situation that you want to prune to prevent. See, I've got this one that goes way down and back up into everything, and now when I prune this, I'm going to lose some potential blooms, and it's just not ideal, not ideal. If you keep up with this during the year, it's not so bad, and you can actually, maintain a really pretty structure. But you have to get out and do this pruning, or else it's just going to look like a mess. That's what most people's wisterias look like down here. I don't think I've really seen anyone down here with a plant that is visible from their, front yard or whatever, that has actually really gone in and done a proper pruning job on their wisterias or even their roses. And that's not me judging. I'm just speaking, reality here. If you're not going to be able to do the work, you're not going to be reaping any rewards. So I do like half of the work. I kind of get into some of it. And as the years go on, maybe I will get better at, things like this. But you have to ask yourself, what kind of gardener are you? Is this the kind of thing you want to be doing? Like going and doing detailed prunings on something like a wisteria for like a week of flowers in the spring? Because if that's you, that's cool, do it. Just be informed, about what that's going to require and entail and what work it's going to require. Now, me, I enjoy garden work, so I'm not really afraid of it. It's just that sometimes I have so much garden work to do that things like this, like pruning the wisteria and getting the vetch out of it, because, I've let that grow up into it, it's just not at the height of my priorities. But if you have a garden, with not a lot in it, and you just want something to put on a pergola, and you are able to go out and maintain it, well, then the wisteria might really be for you. I may have wandered out of y'all's view. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm just, like I said, I'm taking everything back to a structure that kind of, fits right against the plant. Even if these ones are turning back in and on themselves, I'm just going to go ahead and prune them and then yank everything out that I don't want, because I need to kind of get this wisteria really under control. And I'd like it to be flat against the fence as much as possible, because I've got, things planted under here. I've got an ageratum, and I want to plant things generally under here, and I don't want them to get lost this year as this wisteria, I would say, inevitably gets out of control. But if I didn't do the work, it will inevitably get out of control. Did I mention that today's my birthday? I debated whether or not I should actually say that on YouTube, because, maybe somebody could go and try to steal my identity or something. But they can get my they can get my birthday from Facebook or any other number of places anyway, so I've decided not to worry too much about it. Maybe I will go join one of those delete me programs or whatever. Oh, okay, this is a piece that I cut earlier, and whenever I've got a long piece that's traveling into everything, it's a little bit risky to like yank this out. Like I see up there, it's potentially gonna knock some buds off, so I'm gonna try to be gentle with it. Yeah, I'd like to save all the little buds that I can, fully enjoy this bloom while it lasts. And I think with this type of wisteria as well, if you prune it really well during the summer, you've probably got a lot more greater chances of actually getting a summer bloom. I just can't wait to show y'all the wisteria on the garage. It's an absolute nightmare. This one is much, much more tame compared to that one. That one's scary, honestly. It's one of my biggest fails in the garden is letting that wisteria kind of get out of control. It's growing up into the attic and stuff, but I'll save all this information for when we actually look at it, because boy, is it something to look at. Okay, so I've got this portion over here kind of pruned up. Some of these branches seem to have aborted themselves, and they will do that. I think these down here look dead to me. I'm not sure that they are. There we go. Yeah, they are. Well, that one is, because if they snap, then they're dead. It's just a little weird. Why did some of these branches just kind of abort themselves? Yeah, because this whole branch looks dead to some point. It's definitely dead to there, to there. Okay, yeah. It goes really far back. I'm not really sure why. And the branch that's attached to it, roughly, this one is leafing out at the end here. Yeah, there's a lot to know about this, and I'm no expert on it. Oh, maybe that's why this branch died. Some kind of boring insects or something in there. Yeah, that's pretty rough. I don't know what got up in there. That's fun. But the branch below is fine. Ooh, icky. Yeah. Oh, there's a really nice bunch of blooms up here. Now that I've kind of pruned away the stuff that I knew I didn't want, not a lot of that stuff had blooms on it. It's like the plant really likes to bloom along things that I had pruned in the fall, because I was trying to get a handle on this last year in the fall. I was really starting to clean up a lot of the messes that I'd let accumulate, and this is one of those messes, or things like the wisterias. See, I've got this whole section up here. I hope y'all can see it because the camera's not really pointed to it, but yeah, you couldn't see it. So I've got this whole section up here of nice buds and things coming along. Got some dead pieces. There's so much dead stuff in here that I'm not really sure why it died. This is not an ideal situation, by the way. You can grow these on a fence and have it not get out of hand, wrapping and weaving through the fence, but I just didn't do that super well. Now, if you look down here, I actually have a whole section where this stayed on this side of the fence, and it does have some spurs going through, but none of them are super thick. But yeah, if you secured something like this to the fence and had blooms all the way along this would be a super ideal situation. But it's the ones that go straight through the fence that start getting out of hand. And I'll tell you a little secret about wisterias that I've noticed. I'm not sure if this is a known issue, but wisterias, when they touch something, whenever their little vines touch something and wrap around it, whatever they touch, those vines thicken. You can see it in some of these areas back here. Those vines will thicken. I think it's in response to the fact that they've touched something, and it's a way to, secure themselves once they wrap around something. That's where they strengthen their vines, and that just makes them more secure. Make sure that they don't fall over onto the ground. I think I'm getting to the end roughly. I don't have high hopes for this section to bloom here, but this is a pretty cool little section. I think I'm going to cut some of these a lot further back, even though I may be sacrificing some buds. But again, this wisteria is a little bit weird in the fact that I'm seeing that it blooms at the ends of new growth, whereas I think other wisterias don't do that so much. Apologies for the winds, by the way. We have a cold front blowing in, and this cold front is probably going to bring with it some pretty heavy rains and possible high winds. Right now the winds aren't too high, but they're high enough to be annoying while I'm recording a video. Well, this is great. Another thing to know just generally in regards to like when you're pruning a wisteria is, like I said earlier, the fruit tree thing, you know, that all the saps and everything stored in the roots, they get wasted if these guys fully leaf out and you just cut all the stuff that they produce. So this is one thing that I know from listening to people who talk about wisterias. If they see, I think I've got you out of frame again. If you prune off all of your fresh growth that you've allowed to grow, you're wasting some of that energy, and you may not get as nice and big and pretty of a bloom. And part of my issue with why I haven't done some of this is that I'm trying to be a good YouTuber and record most of these spring chores that I'm doing, and so I don't want to just do them off camera. So it's kind of making me wait to do them, whereas normally, you know, I'd just have my headphones on and I'd take care of like all of this kind of in a day if I'm really moving quickly. And I was planning to try to keep all of my little cuttings neat and organized below me, but sometimes you just kind of get into the zone and that goes out the window. Some of these pieces that are dead are so interesting. I might have to do a little bit of a plant autopsy and find out like why it looks like they died, because I don't fully understand it. I'm just hoping that like they didn't get some kind of a pest. So yeah, this piece here has a little hole in it, which, you know, may be something, it might not be. But if some kind of a little creature is getting into these branches and eating them, well, I might want to know about that. But most of the time, my pest control philosophy is just, it's the do-nothing philosophy, essentially. Just prune things off as they get diseased, and if a plant or a group of plants is tending to want to die from some kind of disease, well, not growing that anymore, like lantanas. I'll talk about the lantanas more comprehensively in another video, but I'm not really buying lantanas anymore because they're having a specific problem with me now, and I'm done fighting with them over that problem. Ooh, interesting. Got a whole branch here that died off, and I don't fully understand why some of these branches died. It could be that they got shaded out, because, you know, plants will shade out their branches, you know, accidentally, you know, whatever is up above that survives and grows really well is going to probably, it's going to dominate, and whatever's not growing so well down below, plants tend to, you know, be able to tell that just because they're not getting as much nutrients from those lower branches, and they sacrifice them. That's how trees get one big long straight trunk out in the woods, because all those branches down below eventually are getting shaded out and they just die off, and then the plant sacrifices them. I'm wondering why so many branches though on this seem to have died off. It's not really normal for me to see this, and it's fascinating because, you know, I like to really learn from my mistakes and failures. So I love when I have something going wrong in the garden. It's an opportunity to learn, especially when it doesn't really make sense, because that's what I'm seeing right now is a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense to me, and that gets me really curious, gets my brain going and makes me want to learn, like, okay, what's going on here? Well, I think I've kind of pruned off enough here to get the point across. I don't want this video to be an hour long, so yeah, that's Miss Betty Tam. I'm going to come back in a few weeks probably and show y'all what the bloom really looks like, but I inserted some photos early on in the video just to give you an idea of what it looked like. Not last year, but a few years ago, because last year's bloom was not as impressive as the year before. So for now, I guess that's the end of this video. I'm trying to do a video a day talking about what I'm doing and what I'm working on. I think either the weeping willow or the other wisteria is going to be next. I'll probably do the weeping willow just to kind of break things up a bit. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed this one. Goodbye.